Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Real Steel Munin, or Munin. I'm honestly not sure exactly how to pronounce it. This is an Ivan D design. That's a name that many of you I'm sure will be familiar with. Pretty cool. Thanks so much to Real Steel for sending this knife in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. This knife should be available right now, so I'll link it down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. It's not a small knife. It looks like it might be, but it's not. A little over 8 inches, about 8 1/8. The blade length is almost 3.75 inches. It has a 3.5 inch cutting edge. So really, really good blade to handle ratio, which is something that I have noticed from this designer. It always creates for a better aesthetic. And I think that's absolutely the case here. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. You can see here it's much closer to the size of the Rat 1. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. How about up against the CGRB Large Pyrite? Let's do, we'll do the Spyderco Para 3 and PM2. And last but not least, we'll put it up against the Benchmade Bug Out. And finally, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. How's the action on this guy? So this is a crossbar lock, and it works really well. Actually, Real Steel's crossbar lock feels really good. There's quite a bit of tension on it, and it doesn't feel loosey-goosey or wobbly. And it also is very smooth, very controlled, smooth drop. This runs on washers, which is really nice. I think maybe we can actually see in there. Yeah, and it's got very smooth washer action. It also has really good access to the thumb studs and feels very natural to deploy. Mainly with the, you can do a reverse flick, but it's mainly with your thumb stud that it's going to feel the best. But yeah, dropping right off the release of the axis bar always feels nice. So yeah, great. The action honestly feels very, very good. Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. We have liners and then G10 scales on top, so it's a little thicker than the Para 3, but not insane. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. You can see here that this guy is a little longer than the Para 3, nowhere near as tall. Honestly, in and out of the pocket, it's a fairly compact carry experience. It's just like a chunkier, let me put it up against the Bug Out here. It's like a chunkier Bug Out because it's this long, straight sort of rectangle. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. But wait, these are all Torx, and it won't fit because you need a little flathead. But that's fine because little flatheads are actually pretty easy to come across. So it's really just two. I mean, you've got a Torx back here, T6 for the pocket clip, which by the way, you can flip around, so that's nice. But it's just like two big Chicago screws and then two flat. I mean, honestly, it's not bad. You're still gonna have to deal with the Omega springs. That's a little bit tricky if you've never done that before. But as far as getting the hardware out of the knife, pretty easy. Not really a big issue there. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. It's not a super duper thick blade. Coming in at 120, says 118, probably about 120,000. That's fine. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What are we looking at for materials here? We're looking at, I think it says, yeah, VG10, which let me say this real quick. I've been kind of crapping on VG10 for almost the entirety that I've had a YouTube channel. And the more I research it, the more that I carry knives, and I've got a couple here that are in VG10 that I've been using. Everybody has always told me, like, dude, it's so weird that you like 154cm and you don't like VG10. I think I just created this weird stigma against VG10 in my mind, or had a bad experience with it, had a VG10 knife where the edge like wore down so quickly, and then had some really, really good 154cm blades. And I was always putting 154cm in this absolutely superior category versus VG10. And the truth is that it turns out a lot of you were right. And a lot of the research that I've read about people testing these two steels, it turns out that they're very similar. I can't really complain too much about VG10. It turns out that it's pretty darn good, and it's very well-rounded. I still don't want to see, I wouldn't want like a $200 knife in VG10. I guess it's kind of the same for 154. I mean, you want to see CPM 154 at the higher tiers, but even though the performance isn't all that different. I think ultimately what I'm trying to say here is that I have been unfairly judging VG10, and I don't think the price on this knife is bad, all things considered. So, weight, we have G10 steel and VG10 for the blade. We're coming in at 4.13 ounces. Not too bad considering you have a 3.75 inch blade. What else do we need to do? Have we done everything? I think we have. Okay, let's talk about the meat and potatoes here. This is a pretty good looking knife. I like the profile. I don't think I love the all black version. I think I like some of the other versions where it's got like a satin or tumbled blade and then like the scales are black or whatever. But the all black version looks cool too. It definitely looks super duper tactical and it has this like sort of dagger or bayonet style blade where the line, it doesn't go and it's intentional because you can see here the line is not exactly in the middle of the blade, and that was to create a little bit more of a bevel down to the cutting edge, which is still pretty thick, but it comes out and the line does come out to the same place on both sides. It's not directly out to the tip like it would be on a true dagger, but that's not what they were trying to do. So it's the same on both sides. It's intentional. It has this fuller down the middle, and it creates for a really cool, straight looking, kind of like a real stiletto looking blade. And you also, you have a really straight handle profile, but it's also reasonably comfortable and very easy to manipulate. It's just a cool looking knife, right? Instead of having more of like this curvature where you have like those lock-in spots down at the base, you have more of it's the same throughout, and it looks pretty cool. We have these, sort of crossing lines here that create a little bit of a diamond pattern, a little bit of just aesthetic extra, because otherwise it's just peel ply textured G10. So that's kind of nice, but honestly, it's reasonably comfortable. That pocket clip is super shallow, so you really don't even notice that it's there. Some of the edges, right? I mean, it comes straight and then it chamfers and comes down, and then it's slightly shadow boxed by the liners underneath it, so you feel that a little bit, but I wouldn't call it uncomfortable. It's pretty good. Really, it's a reasonably comfortable knife that the end result is a very cool looking aesthetic. So that's neat. We have a little sharpening tool here, so that's nice. Like I said, the blade, it for how thin the stock is, just because of where this bevel has to start, it doesn't get super thin. It'll still cut and it'll still slice, but this is more of a puncture blade, I think, than anything else. But your general EDC tasks, you'll complete them still, very easy. I would say like continuous cutting over time, that's where it's going to be more of a problem. If you're trying to like break down super thick cardboard, this is probably not the knife to do it. But, you're just opening a package here or there, or making simple cuts. Yeah, I think so. I love the thumb ramp back here. I think that makes it super comfortable, and it especially complements the index finger position very well. There's plenty of lock in here because of the jimping, and that's nice. I like that it just says Real Steel on one side, and then on the other side it has Ivan's logo and says VG10. There doesn't need to be more than that. I think that's just fine. The cutting bevel on the blade is even on both sides. The blade honestly looks great. The whole thing looks great. The fit and finish is really, really nice. We have a nice little back, well, I say little, it's a pretty big backspacer actually. I like this clip design. It just screws into the top and you can flip it over, and lefties can enjoy this too, which is especially important on this because it's an ambi locking system. So it's the same exact experience for left-handed people as it is right-handed people. We have a lanyard hole right here, which is fine. It's out of the way. The pocket clip is honestly almost too shallow at the bill, but it does work because there's a slight ramp. It looks pretty skinny. Kind of wish that it was a little bit wider, but it's fine. No big deal. There is a stop pin located in its traditional spot. No shouldering, but it doesn't need it. There is no blade play up, down, left, or right. There is no lock stick, no pivot lash. This is very smooth and consistent in here. It has a nice snap into the closed position. I keep thinking that it's off-centered, but then I remember that it's on washers, which means it's a little mushy, and so you can almost just move it. But I think it might actually be ever so slightly off-centered, which is likely something you could adjust out with, by adjusting the pivot and handle screws. But still, it is 2023, And I think we should have things centered. I think it should be the rarest of circumstances that any knife is off-centered. It doesn't matter if it's a $20 knife or especially a $2,000 knife. The blade should be centered. So, do I think I could center this knife? Yeah, I do. But should it have come centered from the factory? Yeah, it should have. Let's go ahead and get to the conclusion here. I think this is cool, especially for people who like this straighter sort of like tactical stiletto look, this modern tactical stiletto look. It's really cool, and it is definitely different than a lot of the stuff that we see out there. I really like how the blade looks, even if you sacrifice some function, because the cutting edge is definitely thicker than it would have been had the thing been a full flat ground or especially a hollow grind. But it does look cool, and it's cool that they managed to do that and give it almost a perfectly symmetrical look with the handle being shaped the way it is, and it's still comfortable. I think Real Steel does a great axis style lock or bar lock. It does run on Omega springs, so keep that in mind. Those things can break, but we also have to remember it's not the end of the world if an Omega spring breaks. It's pretty easy to size an Omega spring and find one on eBay that will work perfectly. And at that point, you can almost get a bunch of different, Omega springs that will fit at varying tensions, and you can actually customize the thing to get it the right tension without spending a whole bunch of money, because Omega springs are not really all that expensive. So does it suck that they can break? Yes. Is it hard to replace them? No. It's not like the knife becomes useless at that point. It's just you have to take it apart. You got to get new Omega springs and you got to put them in there. But it's still, keep that in mind. It's not the most fun thing in the whole world to take these things apart. It's VG10 and the price comes in at, I think these come in at $95. I'm not super upset with that. These are made in China, but after, I stopped being stupid about VG10. I still don't want to see VG. It's kind of the same way I feel about 154. I really don't want to see it above like 125 to 150. It used to be that I was like VG10 belongs under 75 period, and I think I'm backing off from that. It is still a very good day-to-day steel, and it does perform very similarly to 154 CM, and I love that steel. So I can't really say that I have a problem. I like the unique look of this. I like the overall quality and feel of it. It's not going to cut as well as something that has more of a, something like this, but it's cool and it's made well, and the price isn't. It's not unfair at all. I think this is a pretty nice knife. But there are definitely a lot of other really great things that you can buy at that price point. So if you're looking at this knife and you're thinking, I like how that looks, and that price tag doesn't necessarily bother me. I just want to know, is it made well, and does it function the way that you would expect a nice knife to function? Yes, it does. But the biggest downside is losing. I mean, you're definitely not going to get ultra great performance out of this blade profile. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. Thanks so much to Real Steel for sending it in. Like I said, I'll link it right down below so you guys can check it out if you want. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. If you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.